Welcome back to NASCAR Lap by Lap with me, Garon Bach. We're going to take a look back at the Kansas race weekend and then look ahead at the very busy All-Star race weekend at North Wilkesboro. I'm happy that you guys have taken your time on this Wednesday evening to join me, and let's go ahead and get right into today's show. To start off, let's take a look back at Kansas. Your winner for the race was Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson, no surprise there, was someone I had picked to win the race. I feel like it was a pretty simple pick for him to win the race. And overall, I think that he was the most dominant car. He seemed to be the one who was going to cause a lot of headaches with the 36 other cars in the field, 37 other cars in the field, especially over the summer when we go to these other cookie cutter type of tracks, your Charlottes, your Michigans, your other races on the circuit that are going to be a simple track, 267 laps, typically 400 miles. I wanted to take a look at the rest of the list here because the most notable thing that I found interesting from the race weekend was your top three finishers: Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney. In my opinion, as of right now, those are your top three drivers in the Cup Series anyways. I think if you're a fan of those three, you should have a really exciting season ahead of you. One of those three are most likely going to win the championship at this point. Earlier this year, I picked Denny Hamlin. He's gotten a couple of wins, but I really think the better driver in the JGR camp right now is Christopher Bell. The other thing I wanted to bring up with Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson is the fact that Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell have already had a rivalry going on for many years back in dirt, and now it's in the Cup Series, and it's going to be a fun one to watch this season. It seems every single track that we go to, these are the drivers that have made a name for themselves. Kyle Larson has had issues in the past with DNFs. He's been someone who has struggled to finish races because he's always been a checker or wreckers type of guy. But we see that he's being more consistent. He's deciding to, hey, maybe I shouldn't force this when I don't need to, and it's working out for him. He's leading the point standings right now thanks to I don't want to say a bad day for William Byron, but just a really unlucky day, which seems to be what is kind of hitting the 2014 the past couple of weeks, just unlucky. But moving down the list here, last week I mentioned the Legacy Motor Club drivers. Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek finished in the top 10 at Texas. And look here, 10th place, John Hunter Nemechek finished 10th. Last week, when our guest Nick DeGroot joined, I asked him about that, and he said to expect wild card races like this, not in the sense of who's going to be the winner, but who was going to be the team that might start stepping it up. And Legacy Motor Club has done that. They have had back-to-back weeks with a driver in the top 10, and that is something that we need to keep an eye out for, because with how the series has been going this year, we've had a lot of drivers win over and over again. Remember, like I said, Christopher Bell, multiple wins. Kyle Larson, multiple wins. Denny Hamlin, multiple wins. And with Joey Logano winning, relatively earlier in the season, Ryan Blaney, who we know is going to get a win at some point, I mentioned that I think he's a top three driver. And the fact that we've still got Chase Elliott, we still have your Alex Bowmans, we still have your Tyler Reddicks. Those are the drivers to expect that, hey, they're probably going to end up in victory lane sooner or later this year. The big name that was shocking to me at the bottom, though, is Brad Keselowski. As you can see here, he's had a really, really bad season, and we see that he finished in 37th last weekend. He was on his way to taking the lead in stage 2. A tire goes down, hits the wall, and he's done. At a certain point, it gets just confusing because I thought Brad Keselowski would find a way. I didn't think he would do well last weekend. I figured, hey, maybe if I start going against Brad Keselowski, he'll turn it around. I don't know, some type of luck, some type of mojo around him. But he didn't. He has the issues, which isn't his fault. we learned last week on the broadcast how these tires go flat with what happened to William Byron, what happened to Brad Keselowski. You go out with low air pressure, something damages the tire, and sooner or later in the run, that tire is going to pop on you. And that's exactly what happened to Brad Keselowski on his way to taking the lead. But the RFK Fords did well other than him. As you can see on the finishing list, Ryan Preece, 7th, Chris Buescher, 8th. Those two have found a way to be consistent, and they're doing it very well. Ryan Preece is the one who I am really starting to enjoy seeing. I think he's a great person. I think he's a great driver overall. I'm glad that a driver who we were getting used to know, like we started knowing him as someone who had these terrible wrecks at Daytona at super speedways, but now he's showing I can put myself into the end of these races. I can show that I belong with the top drivers in this sport, and he's doing it well. Chris Buescher, obviously, we expect him to do well every season at this point. Someone who has multiple wins, someone who can prove that he can do it, and he is a proven driver. And then finally, the last driver I want to mention from the top 10 is Josh Berry in 6th place finish. Josh Berry has been someone who has taken the Wood brothers to another level, and not just because of the win he had at Las Vegas earlier this season, but because of what he's doing overall. He is someone who keeps putting out these top 10 finishes. I mean, even top 5s. We can go back to Texas last week. Over at Texas, he was someone who was leading the race. He was leading in stage 1, and then had an issue coming off of that weird bump off turn 4 and spun out. Josh Berry is someone who's kind of a dark horse contender for a deep playoff run. And if he can keep himself out of trouble, he might be someone that when the time comes, we could go, wait a minute, guys, Josh Berry could be the driver to beat. And with how Phoenix is, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I like to talk about what ifs. Phoenix bodes well for those Penske Fords. And the way Josh Berry has run this season, as well as he has ran, it seems that he is basically a Penske driver. He's done better than what Joey Logano has done up until Joey Logano's win. He did better than Austin Cindric up until Austin Cindric's win. But Penske has turned it around. But the fact that the Wood Brothers 21 Ford has stayed a consistent number has some good vibes around the Ford camp, especially the top teams. Now, overall, in the points, Josh Berry is not doing his best. He's had issues, had his run-ins, but like I mentioned with your driver of Kyle Larson, who will probably win, will knock off a lot of wins this summer. I don't think it'll be another 9-win season, but don't be shocked if he has 6 or 7 again. But Josh Berry is someone who's probably going to put together these consistent runs, going to be someone who will probably finish around the 10th place area, someone who's going to put it all out there and show that he is a top driver. And now outside of the top 10, the most surprising name, I guess, on this list, I mean, if you add in and take the race as itself as a whole, it's understandable. But did we see who finished up in 13th on Sunday? Corey Heim in a 2311 Toyota finished in 13th on Sunday. And let me just say, I wasn't expecting that. But the whole point of what Josh Berry is doing is to go out there and go, okay, for what Corey Heim is doing is to go out there and say, okay, I need to just learn. I need to get better at what I'm doing. This is the point. So one day I can go up there. Guys, this is Toyota's top driver in development right now, and he is showing it. The fact that he finished above Bubba Wallace, above Tyler Reddick, above Riley Herbst, above team owner Denny Hamlin shows that Corey Heim is a name that we need to keep our eyes on if you're just focusing on the top series, which is what this show focuses on most of the time. He's someone I've started looking at, someone who everyone else should start looking at because of what he's able to do. Like I mentioned, though, overall, it is the cookie cutter tracks. These are the tracks that you're supposed to excel at. If you are a good NASCAR driver, you excel at these. Not a great one, a good one. If you are one who is a contender almost every single weekend, those are the tracks you do well. But now I'm done talking about Kansas. The overall race at Kansas was underwhelming for what we thought it would be. But I mean, how are you going to follow up a margin of victory about that much after a season ago there? But I want to move ahead now to North Wilkesboro. North Wilkesboro has been on the schedule now for 2 seasons, 2023, 2024. We saw Kyle Larson win there 2 years ago. Sorry to bring up his name again, but when you're that good, you're going to get brought up a lot. And then Joey Logano won there last season. This weekend, there is a lot going on and a lot of action if you are a fan of the top series, because you're going to enjoy a weekend of every single day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Something Cup Series related will be on your television, and it's going to be very exciting. So to start off, it will be 20 cars in the field guaranteed. These are winners from last season, drivers who made the playoffs, and I believe former All-Star race winners. Including, after Monday, we learned that Harrison Burton will be racing in the All-Star race, which I think is very, very cool. It's awesome. Love to see him come back. You know, that story after his win at Daytona last season in the summer race, put himself in the playoffs. I mean, listen, if I don't have a full-time ride, but I have a chance to race in the All-Star race and make myself $1 million, I don't care what type of car I'm in. I'm going to go do it. He will be in a Rick Ware racing car. We all know about what Cody Ware does in those cars. I'm not saying Rick Ware Racing is a bad team, but clearly we know what a back marker is in the sport nowadays. So I hope he does well. I'm sure a lot of fans will love to see it. I would like to see Harrison Burton do well also. But I want to bring up the All-Star race entry list. You've got Brad Keselowski in there, someone who hasn't done well. But guys, $1 million is $1 million. And if you can put yourself up there, you can put yourself up there. As I mentioned earlier, Kyle Larson is someone who did well. But let's go back to Bowman Gray, the Clash race earlier this season. Chase Elliott did very well there. And it's not the same style of track. It's not another one in a football field, around a football field. It's not another one in a football stadium. But if you're a fan of Chase Elliott, we saw what happened last weekend. The issues happened. It seemed to just be someone that, he just caught another unlucky break. And that's exactly what happened with his teammate, William Byron. But this weekend, he is someone I'm keeping my eye on. I'll go ahead and tell you guys this right now. I was going to save it for a little bit later, but now that I'm on it, I might as well bring it up. So if you stay around at the end, I always bring up a bet that I like. Chase Elliott is a bet that I like. Kyle Larson's the favorite at plus 500 according to DraftKings, which, by the way, if you go to the Bleacher Brothers website and you go to the betting part of the website, you will find links to certain signups for betting websites. DraftKings is one of them. If you sign up, put $5 in, $200 back into your account immediately. But Kyle Larson is the favorite at plus 500. Chase Elliott is double those odds at plus 1,000. I'm someone who likes value. I'm someone who likes to make money. Last weekend, I said Kyle Larson would win, and I understand that was an easy pick, but he did win. I think that Chase Elliott will be someone to watch out for. Chase Elliott, that 9 team, the way they drove at Bowman Gray should clearly just put him at the top of the board for a driver to watch out for this weekend. Kyle Busch will be in this race as well. As I mentioned about drivers that have kind of underperformed this season, Kyle Busch has underperformed the past couple of seasons. But let's be honest with ourselves here. It's not a surprise that he has. RCR overall has been a little underwhelming. But it's always nice for someone, if you're a fan of Kyle Busch, for him to have a good day, maybe even win a race. I think it's very funny. He was on Denny Hamlin's show, Actions Detrimental, on Monday. They talked with each other. Kyle Busch spoke to Denny Hamlin about the fact that Denny Hamlin has taken over kind of Bush's villain role, and it's very funny to me because I grew up as someone, a Jimmy Johnson fan growing up. I did not like to see Kyle Busch win, but nowadays I'm kind of cheering for him. He's someone I'm like, come on, do something, please. But overall, I think that Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, those two drivers that have been underperforming this season can use this as another break, per se. We had the Easter weekend break a couple of weeks ago, but use this. You're going to be at a track around fans. It should be another packed stadium. Why not use this weekend as someone, a sort of like a relax, do what you need to do to win a race? Because overall, they're going to be on the track 3 days in a row and have races 2 days in a row, which I'll get into that in just a second. Those are the two that on Sunday night at 8 o'clock, when they fire up their engines, green flag drops. Those are two that I expect that if they can just do well, they might be able to carry over some momentum into the summer. But I'm going to now go ahead and break into the schedule. So it all starts off on Friday. Qualifying will be on Friday. There will be 3 laps, and a 4-tire pit stop will be on the second lap. The open cars go first, and then the cars that are in the race will go second. So put it this way, 1 lap around the track, second lap you come in and pit, 4-tire stop. But in the middle of your qualifying for your 3 laps, there's also the pit stop competition. The fastest pit stops mean you get to pick your pit stall. So if you're first, you get the number 1 choice for pit stall. But I want to bring up this video of Ryan Newman's spin back in 2017 that I think puts a little bit of excitement into this if you were thinking about missing out on this, because I think it's pretty cool to be able to go back and watch this anytime I can.
He's got it. He's got it. Now come down pit road. Come on, bring it. Come get some 4 tires.
He definitely needs these 4 tires now.
Like I said, he's good at what he does.
Come get some.
So obviously, Ryan Newman saves the car, goes down pit road. This was in 2017, back when the All-Star race was at Charlotte. And that's something you might be able to see over the weekend if you just want to see a driver send it. And like I said, this is to disqualifying, and the pit stops will be like awards. You will win something off of this if you're the fastest team, not just the pit allotment and not your stall allotment, but you win money out of this. But the qualifying goes towards the heat races, which the heat races for the drivers that are already in the All-Star race will be on Saturday. It'll be 2 75-lap heat races. The first race will determine the inside row, and the second race will determine the outside row. These races are going to be exciting. They're short. Do not be surprised if you see a bump and run for someone to get up front a little bit better. And like I mentioned, the 2 drivers that I'm keeping my eyes on, and I think you guys should keep your eyes on this weekend, Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch. These aren't points-paying races, guys. These are races that are just money-based. And if you want to put yourself out there as someone who's just, I need something to break this bad spell of mine, All-Star Race is a way to do it. And then following up on Saturday, after those races, is Sunday. The drivers that are not automatically in the race will be in an open race on Sunday. It's a 100-lap race with a competition caution right in the middle at lap 50. The top 2 finishers make the All-Star race. There it is. The top 2 finishers make the All-Star race. Keep that in mind. Beating and banging, short track racing should be fun. Don't be surprised if you see someone like Carson Hocevar, who we saw what he did last weekend in the Truck Series, flipping off lane rigs, coming to the start-finish line. I call that character. People don't like it, but at least if it's bringing eyes to the sport, bad publicity is good publicity. What can you say? But expect someone who has that type of tenacity, that type of mindset to just say, hey, screw it. I'm gonna do what I can to try to do one of these top 2 cars. But the last and the most important thing to remember here, guys, is the fan vote. The fan vote is You can go on NASCAR's website and pick the driver that you want in the All-Star race if they don't win in the Open. As of right now, the top 5 fan vote drivers are Noah Gragson, Carson Hocevar, Ryan Preece, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Bubba Wallace. And Shane Van Gisbergen in the All-Star race would be funny to me. He has, I don't want to say underwhelmed this season. Whenever he joined the Cup Series, I think we all kind of expected him to perform the way he has. Someone who came from being from a background of street circuits, road courses. You throw him into the ovals, it's going to be difficult. And overall, I think if we put Shane Van Gisbergen on a short track with 22 other drivers, Van Gisbergen is an overall great driver, but on a North Wilkesboro oval, I do not think it will end up well. But it's the All-Star race. I'm here for some calamity and some action because I understand, as much as I'm sure you guys do, that the Gen 7 car has just not been good the past couple of weeks. The races have been on a bad spell, at least according to the Jeff Gluck Instagram polls, the Twitter polls, which are where I typically will find a gauge on the fan base, where most anyone can find a gauge on the fan base for a race. Those polls have just not done well. They've been a little bit above 50, in between 50 and 60% in the yes column for a good race. This weekend, I don't think there will be a good race. If it goes in your typical fashion of we're going to have some type of train, maybe a little bit of bump and runs, but that's all. That's why when Kyle Busch was asked about the competition, about the random caution that gets thrown by the race director at North Wilkesboro, he said, just see how far out Kyle Larson is. They'll probably throw it when he's too far out, and we want to rack them all up again. And I mean, it creates kind of a bad dilemma among fans, among drivers, among media personnel, that it just gets a little disheartening knowing that the All-Star race is going to a short track. But we all know in retrospect that the short track racing has been pretty mid, just to put it that way. But going back to that caution, I mentioned the fan vote. Why is the race director the one throwing the caution? Sorry, it's not the race director. It's the chairman of the track. It's chairman of track operators at Speedway Motorsports, Marcus Smith. He gets to decide when to throw the caution between laps 100 and 220. Why are the fans not doing that? I think for an all-star race, it's for the fans. I mean, like I've said, this weekend I'm going into it as a fan approach. I want to see the all-star race and be one that's fun, be one that's interesting, be one where we see drivers get angry at each other. Remember Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. all-star race, and that was awesome because we saw a dilemma between drivers and not an issue of, okay, it's going to stay on track, let's stay on track. We all remember Jeff Gordon and Brad Keselowski. We go back a couple of years ago where it was Ross Chastain and Noah Gragson. These are the type of things that fans want to see that bring eyes on the sport. And if you think about it, to where NASCAR's like, no, we don't want these fights. Drivers need to stay in their own. We don't want this to be the face of the sport. If it weren't for a fight at the end of the Daytona 500 back in 1978, where would the sport be? I think that as a competitor in the sport, when you're a driver, you want to win. And competition will end in arguments. There's a reason why we hear fan bases, teams, anyone call someone else a cheater. That's why you hear Hendrick versus JGR, and someone's always complaining about Hendrick. Someone's always complaining about JGR. And then it seems everyone's always mad at Penske for whatever reason. Probably because they won 3 straight championships. But I think that the All-Star race would be a good opportunity for fans to control what's going on. They've already controlled the fan vote. Let them control the caution. It would be awesome. If a fan base loves a certain driver, as we've seen Chase Elliott so much, they wouldn't throw the caution, but maybe there would be. Maybe there would be a caution if Chase Elliott's up front. If a whole horde of fans got together and go, we don't want Chase Elliott to win this race. We don't want Kyle Larson. We don't want Christopher Bell. We don't want Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano. There's so many drivers that we can say have all these fans, but I guarantee you there's probably more people that dislike them. And the weekend should be fun. The weekend should be entertaining, and I think the qualifying aspect of the pit stop competition mixed in is a great idea by NASCAR. I think that keeping that as a traditional thing, I love the idea. It puts more eyes on pit stops, which nowadays in stage racing, we talk about pit stops are a big time deal, your green flag stops, but with how strategies are so equal with every other car on the track, it seems pit stops don't feel as impactful. But whenever we get to see these pit crews celebrate, get to see these men who work so hard be able to go out there and put on a show for the fans, it's always worth it. The last thing I want to talk about today, and for the All-Star race overall, is being able to have a rotating All-Star race. They're doing it with the championship race now. Why not move the All-Star race to certain areas? I mean, today, I don't want to go ahead and get ahead of myself, but today I see stuff on Twitter flying around about Chicagoland. Wouldn't that be a great race for an All-Star? I mean, a great track for an All-Star race? Wouldn't you want to see an All-Star race at Bristol again? Back at Charlotte? I mean, there was a reason why NASCAR stayed at Charlotte, is to give the teams a little bit of a break while they were in the season. But I think if the All-Star race were to be put on a rotating schedule, it would drive more fans to the sport in markets that don't really have that anymore. Like I said, Chicagoland. It's an hour, I believe an hour to an hour and a half away of Chicago. We now have the street race there, but it seems that that's not going to be there much longer. We don't have anything really going out in California except for Sonoma anymore. We could try to find something out there. Why not put these cars on a dirt track for an All-Star race? If we're doing these small fields, if we could find a dirt track somewhere. I understand that that dirt track complexes are a lot smaller, but did we not see Bowman Gray? But overall, it should be a fun weekend. It should be one that, if you're kind of wanting a break from complaining about NASCAR, if you're wanting a break from just this average racing, it should be a good one this weekend. As I mentioned, I like Chase Elliott at plus 1,000 on the race. More race lines will pop up later this week. You can check out my article on that Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning. Just depends on whenever the lines are released, over on Bleacher Brothers X page or over on the website. But I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday, a great rest of your week, and stay safe out there, guys. I appreciate you joining once again. Thank you so much.